Welcome everyone. This is Macontherock with the Concrete Conservatives late lunch hour here on WSQF 94.5. I have a very special guest. For me, it's very important and very appropriate for me to say that the person in this South Florida, which is kind of hectic South Florida, to bring us MAST Academy High School to Key Biscayne when nobody else would, not the superintendent, not the school board in general, not the county public schools, not the village of Key Biscayne, not the council members of Key Biscayne. Raquel Regalado brought us MAST Academy High School, and I know because I was sitting in the front row. Raquel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We have so many things to talk about, but yes, we got to talk about MAST, right? We got to talk about MAST. We got to take it in the Wayback Machine.
Yes, you remind me that it's
yes.
as far back as 2010 when this conversation started. And I also have here in the studio Armando Chapelli, who's kind of like creating a ruckus in Washington, D.C. He's like a big boy. He deals with the federal administrators who are now running for Republican committee member. As a Republican committee member, obviously you're from Key Biscayne. You're also president of the Republican Club here in Key Biscayne. We've known each other for years.
A delegate.
And
a delegate to the convention as well.
And a delegate to the convention.
Yes, indeed, elected delegate.
And you're going without a mask. But, well, and basically these two individuals are going to represent us well. I'm biased, of course, because the name of the show is The Concrete Conservative. I invite all the opposing candidates to come here in the studio since this is an FCC facility. So by law, I have to open it up for everyone. So if Mayor Lerner can agree not to scream at me in here because I scream louder than her, she's welcome to come into the studio as well. And she can actually do her antics here. I'm kind of fine with it, but I'm going to be louder than her. And I believe that the other gentleman, like Rosenberg, I believe is his name. So they're welcome to come in here at another date. But Raquel, tell us how important it was to build this high school, and tell us what you did that I couldn't possibly explain, even though I brag about you all the time.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. I mean, it was such a difficult task, but, that's why I said we have to go in the Wayback Machine and explain it to people because, unfortunately or fortunately, right, when something works out, it's everybody's baby, right? So after the expansion of MAST Academy raised property values and became more successful than it was before, because you and I were accused of wanting to ruin MAST Academy,
yes.
if you'll remember.
Yes.
I was specifically accused of selling MAST Academy to Key Biscayne. That was the point that was made time and time again. But now that it's a tremendous success, and that the parents of Key Biscayne have added so much, and that the students of Key Biscayne have added so much, and made MAST Academy a neighborhood school. Now they rewrite history, and everybody was for it, and the fight that we fought kind of gets forgotten. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about how difficult it was. And first and foremost, I got to say, like I was saying before the show, the first time I met you in May of 2010, I told you that I was running for school board, and you said, don't even promise me a high school because we've been asking for a high school for 38 years. Yes. Don't even promise it because it's never going to happen. And I remember telling you, like, well you never say never.
Yeah. And I said, well, if there's something I could do
yes.
to accelerate things, I'm going to do it, and I hope you're going to be supportive of it.
And we had a conversation about neighborhood schools. And this was a conversation that was very controversial and that I brought to the school board as a parent of children in the school system. But back to MAST, one of the things that was very difficult about, trying to get people to understand why Key Biscayne deserved a high school was 2 points. Number one, when I got to the district in 2010, there was this obsession, and I called it an obsession on the dais, and I'll say it again here, with magnet schools. And this idea that every school should be a magnet and that kids are supposed to come from all over, and I challenged that. And by the way, I challenged that as a graduate of Coral Gables Senior High, the first APIB magnet that existed. I graduated from a magnet.
And Key Biscayne's feeder school.
Right, yeah. So I graduated from, Coral Gables. I was a child that was allowed to go to Coral Gables because I got into that magnet. But one of the things that I try to explain, to my colleagues, 25 years later, is that magnets have had a detrimental effect on our community because they've eroded neighborhood schools. When you buy a house, the first question that you ask your realtor is, what is my neighborhood school? And if your neighborhood school is a magnet and you have a better chance of getting hit by a truck than getting your kid in, that's a problem. You know,
Yeah,
and
it discourages people buying in the neighborhood.
of course, and that's why you see this growth in Pinecrest, you know, this exodus from Coral Gables because Coral Gables had controlled choice, the exodus from Key Biscayne because parents just did not have predictability in terms of their education. Saw that starting in middle school, they started to leave the Key because they just didn't want to deal with the high school. And what's harder for people to understand is, you know, and you and I dealt with this at those many meetings, this idea that an affluent community didn't deserve a public school. Like that was actually said to me, like on the dais,
Yeah,
right?
like don't
That
represent Key Biscayne because they don't deserve it. They can do it for themselves.
they could pay a private school. People literally told me that. And I was like, well, wait a second. You know, when did we decide that because a community is considered by someone affluent, because I mean, what is an affluent community, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we're not
we're
talking about
guilty.
we're not talking about Indian Creek, right? You know, and even if we were talking about Indian Creek, people pay taxes and people have the right to access a public education. How can you decide unilaterally, right, that because of a certain socioeconomic range, right, that you've established, that all of a sudden those people get left behind and
Especially when our taxes
float the boat. They float the boat.
We share with everybody else.
Well, that's the other reason. The way that the taxes work for Miami-Dade County Public Schools is that we get, apart from the state, that gets matched by property taxes. So the increase in property values in affluent communities really float the boat for those communities that don't have that growth in income. And I spoke about this, as you know, for months.
Yes.
I drilled it.
I remember the silence when she spoke because she was making sense, and her board members were PhDs, so they argued with her. They're going to get it from her.
Well,
And
I
it
was happy to talk funding, right?
Yeah.
I was happy to talk funding. And look, funding.
Never mind.
What are you looking
never
for?
mind. I'll give you a standing ovation
Yeah,
later.
thank you. But it's all about funding, and that's how we got to a resolution when we did the expansion of MAST Academy. Because you'll remember, I mean, the district's first response was, number one, Key Biscayne doesn't need a high school; they can go to Coral Gables, and number two, we don't have the money. And that's how we got into a conversation about how Key Biscayne needed a high school, why the proximity was important, how it would increase property values, and how it would capture students that were leaving the system and provide Miami-Dade County Public Schools with more students.
Okay, but now we have the moment of crescendo. How valuable was the $9 million from the Oceania development?
Huge, and that's where you step in.
Yes.
You did a magnificent job.
Yes, it's now on YouTube, so anybody who wants to watch it can. The money trail behind MAST, and you can see me. Sorry, I was weighing 320 pounds, but I had an inferior beard. I have a better beard now, and I think it's so important that your success be told. Your story has to be told, because here on WSQF Radio, we are actually your district's radio station, because you could be heard all the way down to Palmetto Bay.
Yes.
So it's important that that people understand that some people get it done. And I think Miami Herald, who endorsed you, said it clearly: you get things done.
Yeah.
All right, so you're listening to WSQF Blink Radio. We've had a great time. As you can see here on Blink Radio 94.5, we pretty much converse with our guests, not really journalists per se. And Raquel, you've been marvelous. Thank you very much for
Always a pleasure.
for reminiscing about our travels together for the building of MAST Academy. Armando, thank you for putting your hat in the ring and doing the battle up there.
I need a hat.
You need a hat. So stay free, my friends. You're listening to the afternoon show of the Concrete Conservative with Raquel Regalado and Armando Chappelli. Two great people doing great things in a great country. Amen, and stay free. Bye-bye, my friends.